Hi, so welcome to an episode of the Expat Experts. And today we have an expert join us called Simon Walker. And he is head of Skywalker, which is a law firm here in the UAE. And he also has been in the UAE for many years. There's lots of things that we can ask him. And he also has initiated a project called Mindforce.
Yep.
And that is with the Dubai Police, a mental health initiative, which we're going to ask you a little bit more about as we go along. So Simon, just tell us a little bit about your kind of time in the UAE and what you're doing at the moment, and just a bit more about your background.
Okay, I was City of London, then I was in Hong Kong, then I went back to City of London. Then when my daughter went to boarding school, I allowed myself the liberty of going to travel again because I like that. And I moved out to the UAE and I've stayed here ever since. I had quite a long stint in-house with a very, very interesting business, but I've generally done law firm stuff. And then a couple of years ago, I decided I've got to give a go to running my own law firm, having my own law firm and founding one. So that's what I've done with Skywalker Law.
Okay, so you've had that now for how many years?
A bit over 2 years.
Okay, and it's more just corporate, generally like drafting agreements and corporate agreements and franchise. I'm not a corporate lawyer, so I'm trying to guess.
We've got a family and divorce lawyer going drafting agreements, and I'm going. You're generally about having fights with people. And, yes, it's a corporate law firm, so it's non-contentious, but I do kind of more buying and selling companies, as they like to call it, M&A, and joint ventures, distribution arrangements, sort of slightly more complicated commercial and corporate arrangements.
Okay.
I have a relationship with a really good disputes firm here for complicated business disputes, not kind of criminal or family disputes, business disputes.
Sure.
And we have an arrangement where we refer things to each other because if I have a sort of high net worth client who gets in a complicated dispute, I need to make sure it goes to someone good, and these guys are really good.
That's really good.
So that's how I work it. And as a corporate guy, if you're doing a corporate dispute, sometimes the litigators, well, we only write documents. The litigators only draft pleadings and file things at court. And you sometimes need a corporate guy to give the litigator that little bit of extra knowledge about how company law works, corporate law. So you can add strategic value.
Do you think the corporate side here is different to the UK, or is it very similar, but you're just dealing with a different market, or would you say they're similar in ways?
No, I'd say it's pretty different.
Very different.
I would say that, how do I say this? I think the quality is quite patchy. I think there's a lot of focus on the filing and the stamping and the bit of paper more than on the actual oomph of the transaction.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a kind of English and Dubai lawyer with English and Hong Kong experience is different, is better in some ways.
So in Hong Kong as well, were you doing all the corporate side as well?
Yeah, big deals in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Because a lot of people from Hong Kong have kind of moved out as well, back to the UAE as well, given the
latest influx has been China and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
No, sorry, the latest influx just now is English.
Oh, is it?
So we had all the Russians and Ukrainians with the war. Quite a lot of the Russians have gone back now because they found, even though they thought it would be a great sanctuary, they couldn't really open bank accounts. They weren't welcomed that much here because there really are still anti-money laundering and all of those problems. So quite a lot of them have gone back. Then there was a bit of a Chinese influx. And now the latest is Brits fed up with the English political system and things falling to pieces.
Coming here.
And Europeans Brits with living in Europe because of the Brexit coronavirus.
Yes.
So the UAE is, part of it might be luck, but I think they're very strategic and they keep catching the next wave of who wants to come here.
Yeah, it's true actually. I think that's a good analogy.
And I mean, given this influx of potentially high net worth individuals, people looking to invest, looking to open businesses out here, given your experience, what would you say are in basic terms, some key legal considerations that people may have, individuals or businesses alike, when they are operating in the UAE, especially if they're perhaps an expat coming from another country?
Yeah. Okay. So you can come here and set up a free zone company really easily. There are literally just over 50 free zones now across the UAE. You can get some super cheap solutions. You get your work permit, whatever. But you've got to focus on what you're going to do, because if you're going to be doing mainland trading business, it doesn't necessarily help you to have a free zone license. So if you're just coming here for a visa, fine, go with what's quick and easy. If you're coming here to create a business, you've got to understand where it's going to be doing business, what kinds of business. You do have to understand who you have to get licensing and approvals from. It's regulated here. Some people think it's a bit cowboy. Not at all, actually. It's really quite regulated. And the legal world is very regulated and so on.
Sure.
It then sounds like here's a lawyer trying to sell his wares, but I think the key thing is to have a good advisor.
Yes.
It may be just someone who's going to spend a couple of hours with you giving you the big picture strategy. But I think a lot of people might go to a cheap and cheerful company setup agency. The cheap and cheerful says, oh yeah, we'll do everything for you. It's absolutely fantastic. And then after they've paid the money, they realize that it's not fit for purpose. And this is, that's what I'd say.
Okay. No, that's very helpful.
I think also get somebody trustworthy.
Yes.
It's quite a commercial world here,
Like
and there are an awful lot of people who will say that they can do everything when they can't really. How do you identify if someone is trustworthy? Try and find a connection from a connection, that you've done the diligence.
Yeah. I think the UAE market's quite small, so I think people do prefer to be recommended or put in touch with someone. So where the same people will come to us and say, could you recommend someone that can assist with this issue I've got? And it could just even be an employment issue, or they've got some business thing that they need to do. So we get that approach as well. They'd rather it come from us than kind of just Googling and saying, well, actually there's about 50 companies that all say they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, which one do I go with? So it's always easier to ask someone you trust or you know or have a relationship with. So what are like recent developments and trends in the UAE you've seen? Because you've been here obviously for a while, and obviously you've started your Skywalker. So would you say the market's changed a lot, like pre-COVID, post-COVID? Is it quite similar?
No, it moves quite quickly here. And as I've said already, I think government is quite sassy. So cryptos, for what that's worth, but blockchain and metaverse and some of those sort of solutions, we produced the first ever virtual asset regulations, the VARA regulations. Other people are following us. On that, the UK is kind of following the lead of the UAE. So that's a big area. They're tidying up some of the doubts on the real estate law. There's been some, when there was the big crash all those years ago, they found that there were quite a lot of problems that they had for selling things off plan and stuff. They've really tidied that up.
Okay.
We really tidied up being on the OFAC grey list. And so we're put on that as being a sort of slightly shady jurisdiction. Within 1.5 years, they did full UBO checking, full compliance, AML, whatever. And we, earlier on this year, got back off that grey list.
That's positive.
So it moves quite quickly. Are there any other particular areas that I thought were...
noteworthy?
No, I think probably that is what I would say for now.
Yeah.
But this, let's just move on a little bit to this, to Mindforce. We can both ask some questions on. So how did Mindforce come about? That's quite a new, not new, but it's a recent initiative that you got involved. How did that start? Who approached you, or who did you talk to kind of set this up? Because, like I said, mental health is a big thing, and it's not been highlighted that much in the UAE. And obviously you are one of those people that now has created this initiative, and it's with the police as well. And you've kind of, it's your baby. So tell us a bit more about how this came about.
Okay. I'll start on a bad tone. I got into it through a chap who turned out to be not a very solid person, but he got me into understanding the field. My history is that my dad, God bless him, committed suicide a long time ago. I got to understand mental health and be personally invested in it from then. I realised what COVID had done here. I realised that the Muslim religion is quite sensitive, maybe a bit embarrassed about mental health, particularly suicide, because suicide's kind of haram.
It's a sin, yeah.
But I realised that something needed to be done, and everybody here wanted to do things. So Sheikh Hamdan, the son of Sheikh Mohammed, who does all the marathons and everything, he's a really forward-thinking guy, and they really want to sort out mental health, particularly in children and the youth. They see that as the next generation that's going to run this place, so they've got to get it right. And the UK's got 2.4 million children waiting for some kind of therapy because the NHS isn't working. And here, again, because I admire it so much here, they've been making steps and drives to get it better. But mental health went crazy after COVID, like with everywhere else. Who's going to do it? They put the police in charge of it, because the police are the first responders. If somebody sort of, is in a bad state, the police are the first there. But then the police were Emirati, they weren't necessarily that familiar with it. So they had to work with the DHA. And what I felt as an English guy here and a lawyer who's used to kind of putting things together and putting people together, that there would be a real value in just trying to join the market up a bit more and getting all of the people involved, whether it's insurers or healthcare providers or medics or doctors or psychiatrists, talking a bit more. And it sounds a bit intangible, but actually the biggest joining up on mental health is to get everyone to join up and then to encourage people to talk about it, to get famous people to come out with the fact that they did it, so there isn't so much stigma. So I would like to think over the couple of years that I've been supporting the police and the Dubai Health Authority, not in any official partnership, but supporting them, working with them, talking with them. I've helped make a change in attitude, joining up, stigma, and therefore improve things.
Okay.
No, that's wonderful. Turning slightly to the subject of law, would you be able to perhaps share a memorable case or experience that you've dealt with that perhaps illustrates the intricacies of practicing law in the UAE as a sort of closing remark, perhaps?
Oh, is it going to be the end?
Soon, yes, we'll be told to.
Okay, I thought there are two ones I've done with sort of big public companies, or sort of big ticket deals, selling myself, not really. But what was interesting in that was a lot of the dynamics here are about people, and there were quite a lot of sheikhs and rulers, not rulers, but important people involved in the transaction. And I learnt then, it's quite a generalist comment, I learnt then that actually the power in the M&A deal might normally be with one company being bust or one having more money. In this, it could switch and twist and turn depending on the power of the people behind it. Okay. And the way that the business world operates here is still quite people-centric, more so than in England. So I think that's a cultural awareness that one has to have, and has on these two particular transactions really shifted things in a way that I'd never had in several hundred UK M&A deals.
So it's fascinating. So your practice, it's fun. It's really interesting to hear because you've obviously moved from different continents, and obviously you're now here in the UAE. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, 10 years? Do you see yourself here still, or do you have any different, what's your plans?
I think that I see myself doing mainly stuff here. I think going with that will be living here. Cost of living has gone up quite a lot. Cost of real estate's gone up quite a lot. For all the plus sides, that does have its slight downsides for the residents. So it's, and the complications of having tax and VAT and everything.
Yes.
So staying here, super happy with it, but I would just make the point that there's, as it goes up the food chain, it's encouraging more very, very wealthy people to buy super expensive properties, which they only come to for 3 months of a year. And it's slightly squeezing and marginalising the genuine people who are working here in the community. So it's a very good idea in theory, but you've always got to watch the fallout in practice, I think.
Okay. And with all your vast experience, obviously dealing with expats, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners listening today who are listening about what you kind of things you've been doing, what you've been involved in? What would be some advice or some pearls of wisdom you would give? And it could be from a legal perspective, it could be from a mental health perspective that you'd like our listeners to take home.
Would this be English people thinking of coming here, or
just expats here, or maybe coming here, or just what you'd like to share with anyone, or living here?
I think make sure that you've got, and this isn't selling the lawyer, make sure you've got the right local consulary or business connected consulary so that you've got someone to get sensible practical advice from. And I think what I've learned in the mental health thing, and it impacts on living here and everything, is that about 65% of the mental health problems here are caused by loneliness. Now, not a lot of people think of that. It might be all sorts of other things, work, stress, or whatever, but because it's a very driven business environment and everyone just concentrates a little bit on making money and too much on looking good, it's a bit superficial in that way. There is a absolute plethora of loneliness. So I'd advise people to drop all the ego, drop all the presentation, and get some sort of proper close connections. I think people fall into the superficiality and have they got the best car and the best clothes and whatever.
True, yeah.
And it doesn't work for people in the long term. I think sort of proper banded relationships are essential. Are essential.
And we can say that from a family perspective. We've got couples and, husband moves out and wife's by herself, for example. She then just wants to go back home. She's like, I'd rather be around my family. I don't like living here. He's moved in with his new girlfriend. I've just been left here just sending money. Like, it's not a life that she wants because she's no longer part of this family unit. He's kind of moved on. And a lot of these mums want to relocate back. And I really understand why, because my mum and sister are there, or my friends are there, I grew up there. I just want to go back home. And if husband doesn't agree, they just kind of leave. So that's quite common. So I definitely think, and that's even with women separating, and I think men as well, sometimes they when they lose the family, or if the wife has gone, I think it's really hard, especially if he's still living in Saudi or Dubai or any country and he's working, and obviously the money's coming in, but the family's gone. So I think these are quite important topics that expat families do go through.
Really important things.
Exactly.
And society is a little bit broken globally. Everyone lives in little boxes. Everyone envies people's better lives on social media, and they allow that to impact on their mental health. Whereas since the Stone Age, we've relied on community. We've lived in villages. We need somebody to have our back.
Yes.
We want to be able to put our hands in the earth and have, and all living in little huddles in buildings, looking at social media doesn't really work.
No.
So
I think
instead of going on antidepressants, which is great for the pharmacy companies, and that's why they don't particularly want to change it, you've got to focus on making sure that your quality of life and your connections are right. Really important. But
I think what you're doing with Mindforce is fantastic, and we'd like to bring you on another podcast just to talk about that specifically. This was more just an introduction to Simon. So it's lovely to meet you today and our listeners to get an insight into what you do. If somebody wants to contact you, we'll get your details and share them anyway, but what is the best way? Is it via your website or is it via social media?
It's probably by an email to my email address. Okay. So if you share that, and then I do masses of WhatsApp because we can't really do WhatsApp calls here, so you do a lot of WhatsApp messages and voice messages.
And WhatsApp's the way forward. Everyone likes to WhatsApp you if they can't get hold of you sometimes.
So I'll give you those details and people can WhatsApp.
Yeah, of course. We'd love to share that with our listeners, and we'd love to have you back on again and just discuss Mindforce a bit more. I think it's fantastic. And it just shows that the UAE is progressive and is trying to progress and trying to help with the scene, the issues in this area. And I think that you've been brilliant in what you've done.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.